Hello, my name is Catherine Drummond of Gingerbread Girl Designs, and this tutorial is on the alternating stem stitch. The alternating stem stitch is used a lot in contemporary Punto Antico embroidery. It wasn't used historically, but it has been added in recent years. And I really like this stitch. I think it adds a nice extra border around the four-sided stitch, and it can be used in other ways as well. I use the alternating stem stitch in a lot of my Punto Antico designs. I generally use it as an extra border around the four-sided stitch, and I often use a contrasting color to the stitches of the four-sided stitch border. I think it adds a really nice visual border. So here we go. One of the things you want to know is that all of the stitches are over 4 fabric threads, with the exception of the compensating stitches in the corners. So check your chart carefully for those compensating stitches and make sure that you know how long they are and where their placement is. So we're going to do the first stitch of the alternating stem stitch here. With this stitch, you form a really narrow border. It's only over 2 fabric threads, but you're building both lines of stitching at the same time. And each stitch shares holes with the previous stitch. Watch your chart carefully for the placement of the stitches and where they line up with the previous stitching. You can save yourself some trouble that way. If you make a mistake, you might catch it early and not have to rip out too much. Now, if you'll notice, I'm doing this stitch with what I call a stick and stab method, which means I put the needle through the fabric and pull the thread all the way through for each stitch. You can use a sewing motion for this stitch, which means, like this, you put your needle into the fabric and out of the fabric in one motion, and then pull your thread all the way through. However, you should choose one or the other because the stitching will look slightly different with each method, and you may notice a difference if you're switching back and forth. As you can see, I'm almost finished the line of alternating stem stitch. So we're going to come to the corner again, and I've got a compensating stitch that's 1 fabric thread longer here. That one's over 5, and the one on the top is over 4. And since we're coming to a corner, I'm going to show you how to turn the corner. And it's really, really easy. The first stitch of the new side, 1, 2, 3, 4, goes backwards. And then you just continue on as you did before, building your line of stitches, the 2 lines of stitches at the same time. As you can see, it adds a really nice extra border around the 4-sided stitches, and you can use it to bring in some extra color. So that's always nice. I've used Wildflowers thread here by Caron, which is a nice over-dyed thread. So as you stitch, you'll see some subtle variations coming in this particular color scheme. Some of the other Wildflowers threads are not really so subtle. All right, that is the end of the alternating stem stitch tutorial. I hope you find it useful for you, and happy stitching.